on and off will be described. To start, go to the back of the machine, and you're going to see this green button here. Turn it on. Of course, the machine is plugged in. This is your key switch that has to be turned perpendicular to the line so that will allow the laser to work. Once those two are in function, the laser will work. Also, the foot pedal must be attached or the machine will not work. If you have the wireless, there's going to be a mechanism back here that would take its place. Okay, once you've turned those buttons on, come around to the front, and the screen will start to go through its process. It's Windows based, so you're going to see some similarity with probably some of your computer Windows programs. Most of the time when you're setting this up in your operatory, you'll want to move the machine into the operatory, turn it on, and start setting up your room, and the laser will be up and ready for you by the time you're done setting up your room. The welcome screen is going to lead into what's called your standby screen, and you'll know that because it'll have the big Fotona logo on it. And on that Fotona logo, if you actually tap it, it will actually go into a laser demo, which is kind of a cool process to just educate your patients. So that's the standby screen. You see currently it's saying synchronizing. Occasionally it will say self-test. Okay. Once it's done synchronizing, and it doesn't do that all the time, sometimes it'll go straight to press on to start. And then we're going to be, so now the machine has been properly turned on. If we want to activate the laser, this button here activates the laser, which once the laser is on, it's going to ask you, do you have the correct handpiece? It's always going to ask you that as a precautionary. The next thing you're going to see is this goes red. That's a sign that the laser is working. And the next thing you want to look for is the aiming beam. Okay, so always when you turn the laser on, first check for red, then check the aiming beam, and then you can begin going to the patient for care. When you're done with the laser, always hit the off button and then return it back to its seat. Okay, to properly turn the unit completely off, you'll hold down on the black button with the yellow X, and you heard it go doo-doo. That is a sign that you are prepared to turn it off. So now come back around, and you just need to turn off the green button, and you can turn the key switch back to the off position. And that's it. Okay, now we're going to be familiarizing you with the erbium side of the laser. The erbium is your all-tissue laser because it's targeting on water and hydroxyapatite. So this is your lens cap. Inside this arm is a series of mirrors that send the laser all the way out to here. We're going to connect this part here is called your HC coupler. I call it the dental coupler because it's going to allow the dental handpieces to be interchangeably used with the erbium side of your laser. So you unscrew that cap, and the neat thing is these caps, when not in use, will actually go together, and it's good to store them that way. Now you're going to attach the HC coupler to the erbium arm. When you're doing this, be careful not to cross thread. If you feel it resisting, stop. Don't force it. Nothing on this machine is ever meant to be forced, because if you cross thread it, you're going to have issues. And then we're going to connect the water line, and we're going to connect the air, which these are quick disconnects. So I'll show you how to remove this here in a little bit. Okay. So this is the HC coupler. This piece is used whenever if you have the other parts of the handpiece in sterilization, the end lens should be covered to protect it. This lens is also important to check and make sure that you don't have any fingerprint marks on it. If there's fingerprints, the human oils have water molecules in them, and it will react with the erbium energy. So you want to make sure that that's clear. How you clean that with a Q-tip, and always either 70% alcohol, or better yet, 100% acetone. Okay, the acetone dries quickly, so you just put a little Q-tip on there and wipe the little end of your lens, and that's it. That's the HC coupler, also known as the dental coupler. Okay, so the next handpiece is the tipless, also known as the HO2. I kind of remember this by the O in HO2 reminds me of a 0, meaning no tip. Okay, instead of a tip, it has a window that can become damaged. If it does, you have a backup one that came with your laser, and I'll show you how to remove that. To properly sterilize it, it should look like this, where the plug is in one end and the window is in the other, to protect the mirror that's behind here from getting filled with water and damaging the mirror. So to take out the plug, you line the lines up together, pull straight out, okay? To put them back in, you line up the lines, push in, and turn, and then that's locked. Now it's properly ready to go through sterilization. Ideally, I would run this through your autoclave. The Statim is actually better for this, less damaging. But if you're running it through an autoclave, run it unbagged. When you run it with a bag, it has a tendency to push that water into that mirror area more. If you're going to be bagging it, definitely take out your mirror. If you just want to prevent and have those mirrors last as long as you can, it's always a good idea to just take that out prior to sterilization anyways. And I'll show you how to take out that mirror here in a minute, okay? So in the meantime, if your window ever becomes damaged, what we're going to do is actually remove this. I always do this over top of something. So we're going to come over here, and I'm going to use this little tray cover here to show you, okay? So there's a little gap on either side of that window, okay? And that's designed for these instruments to go into those gap spaces. Okay, this instrument fits down in there, you grab it snugly and pull straight out, and that's your window, okay? And then you put it back in, put the new one in, and just push it into place. It's as easy as that, okay? Okay, now I'm going to be teaching you how to check your mirrors. So on both of the dental handpieces, there's a mirror access on the back of the handpiece. And you have a tool. This is your mirror tool. You have one end is the side that basically will work on taking the screw out of the back of the handpiece. And then we're going to use the other male part to actually grab onto the mirror. So I'm going to take this in the little slit. And when you put this back in, you only want it to be finger tight, because if you tighten it too tight, especially when you run it through sterilization, it's going to get even tighter, and it's very easy for you to strip that if you do. So now take this male part into here and just turn it to the right so that you thread it. Once you feel it get a good grab, and just pull straight out, and that's your mirror. It should always be shiny and gold like that. If you pull it out and there's a whitish debris on top of that, then you would want to clean that off with 100% acetone and or 70% alcohol, either one. Remove that debris and then put it back into the machine, into the handpiece. If your handpiece ever, now you just put it back in, unscrew it to the opposite direction, okay, so that that releases. And then we're going to put the cover back over top of it. This is why I always do it over top of something, because those little bad boys roll away and you need to be able to catch it. And we're just going to thread that back on. Remember I said just finger tight and you're done. It's that easy. Okay, this is your tipped handpiece, also known as H14. How I remember this is the one in the H14 kind of looks like a tip, so that's how my visual memory reminds me. Okay, this is what it should look like when it's going through sterilization. There's a plug in the end, and you don't see any of the blue on the plug, so that's sealed. And then there's the plug in the bottom. To remove the plug, same as the other one, we're going to line up the lines and then pull straight out. Line up the lines to put it back. It won't go any other way. Line up the lines and turn it. And this plug is just pull straight out. Okay? When you put it in, you should see no blue for it to be sealed. Okay? So now we're going to put it onto the machine. We're going to turn this to the lines, take the plug off, take the coupler protective cover off. That just pulls straight off. And then again, we're going to be looking at the lines, the line on the coupler and the line on the dental handpiece to go straight together. Okay? And that's it. Now we're going to take this tip, little plug out, and I'm going to show you how to properly seat a tip. With your machine came this little tip changer, and if you look closely, one side has a little trough and the other side is smooth. You see that little trough? That's down on this end here. Okay, perfect. So that trough is where you're going to load the tips into. This is for demonstration purposes only. Normally you would have gloves anytime that you are dealing with tips because the human oils can leave debris. So we're going to line up there's a track on all of the tips just above the plug portion. So that little track is what we're going to line up with the trough that we have here, and then that's securely in place. And then you always want to cover it with your thumb so that it doesn't fly out as you're trying to put it in, and you're just going to push it straight in to the handpiece and then slide it off. Now you can see that that little trough area better. Okay, so the trough on the tip is going to line up with the track on the remover, and when you load it, you're going to feel it grab. Okay, if I had this on the wrong way, it doesn't grab because there's no trough. Okay, so that trough goes into the track, cover it with your thumb, and pull straight off, and that's how you put tips on and off safely. Okay, they do make a tip carousel which will hold many tips, but you're going to need to know how to use this tip holder because once the tip is dirty, you can use this tip to remove it and dispense the next tip to do it and stay in a clean environment. Okay, when not in use, you want to put the plug back in the end to keep that sealed and protected. Okay, and now we're going to take this for sterilization because we've used this on a patient. There's a 0 on each side. Okay, you're going to squeeze those zeros together at the same time and pull straight off. Let me do that again. Line up the lines to put it back on, and then there's a 0 and the 0 on the other side. Squeeze those together and pull straight off. Okay, now this goes back onto the dental coupler to protect that lens, and the plug gets entered back onto the handpiece, the line with the line. And now that this is in place and the plug is in place, this is safe to go into sterilization. Ideally, we'd want to autoclave this unbagged. You can bag them if you want, but if you do, definitely you'll want to take out that mirror because the bagging tends to force that water into that area more. Statums are better. They're less damaging to the long term of the optics of that mirror, but definitely they are autoclavable. Like I said, statums are best. Okay, and there is a mirror access port in here, same as the other. I'm going to come and do this real quick for you to show you one more time. So with this, you're going to have your mirror tool. You're going to come to the back of that, unthread that cover. Always do this over top of something so that that piece doesn't run away from you. And take the male part, thread it in till you get a good grab, pull straight out, and check that window, or check that mirror, I mean. If there's any debris, just take a Q-tip with 100% acetone or 70% alcohol, let it dry. After you've cleaned it all off, and push it back in. You'll feel it kind of seat. Unscrew it to the left, and then put the cover back on. When you put the cover back on, you're only going to do it finger tight. And you'll know that you have the mirror all the way down because if you don't, this cover part won't seat. Okay, just finger tight, and you're all set. It's as easy as that. Okay, now I'm going to introduce you to the PSO4. If you forget, the number is on the handpiece itself. This also is sometimes called the R16 when you're talking about the settings that are going to be on your machine. So PSO4 and R16 settings are simultaneous, same one and the same. This part will replace the dental coupler. So we're going to come over here and remove the dental coupler first. There's quick disconnects up here that you just lift up on those quick disconnects, and those disengage. And then we're going to unthread the dental coupler. And the PSO4 is used in aesthetic procedures. The cap for the PSO4 and the coupler are interchangeable. So when you take it off one, you then use it to cover and protect the other. And then we're going to put this into the erbium arm and thread it into place. Again, if you're starting to thread it and it's not going well, don't force it. Undo it and start again. Okay? This is used for all the aesthetic procedures and night lays as well. The only piece on this that is actually able to go through sterilization is if you pull straight at the end, this part will come off. This part can go through sterilization. It's the only piece of the handpiece that can. You have a lens here on the end of that, which you want to check for fingerprints or debris. That should always be nice and clear. If it's not, we're going to use 100% alcohol. 100% acetone or 70% alcohol on a Q-tip to clean that off. Let it dry. There is a screen in there. I don't know if you can see that with the little holes in that. That is your filter screen. Most procedures, you're going to leave that in place. But there are some procedures like bleaching or wart removal that you don't leave that tip in. So you just unscrew the silver end part, and then always over top of something, you're going to tap to get that piece out. Okay. Now to put this piece back in place, you'll notice on one side it's a little duller than the other, and it has a concave side, okay? So we want the concave dull side, which is this side, to be what is going down towards the handpiece itself. So the shiny convex side should be pointing out of the machine. To put this back in, you would always do this with gloves on. I apologize, I don't have any at my home where we're doing these videos. But then that drops back into place, and then you're just going to put the little cover back over top. And again, ignore the fact that I don't have gloves. You would want to have gloves on. I'll have to clean all these later with acetone. Okay? But finger tight. The very first time you go to try to remove this, it's going to be very difficult. You may have to use pliers. Cover it with a rubber dam material, but you'll see there's a little flat point here and another flat point like that on the other side. So if you cover it with a rubber dam so you don't scratch the lens, and get a pair of pliers to just loosen that. And once it's loosened, you'll be able to finger remove it. If you're not careful and you're trying to do the other spot, this part actually does unscrew, which of course now it's not going to do it. But you're ideally just trying to unscrew just this little silver cap part, okay? And then when this comes back out of sterilization, this can go back on, and it just, any which way, it doesn't matter, and it just pushes down to where this is completely sealed, okay? And then that's ready to go. It's as easy as that. Okay, now let's familiarize you with the ND YAG side of the laser. From this red line over, all of these handpieces will be for the ND YAG. And I usually read as a visual to me that this is kind of the hot side of the laser. And I also use this visually to remind me that it's looking for blood and pigment. Those are the chromafluors that the ND YAG is targeting, blood and pigment. And so let's start with the R30A handpiece. This is your aesthetic and dermatologic handpiece. It is going to create a larger spot size. There's a dial on here. You'll see lots of numbers along the edge, and those line up with this wand. And as I turn the dial, that wand extends and gives a greater distance from the target, which gives a greater spot size. This lens cap pulls straight off, and then that exposes the lens of the R30A. You always want to make sure that the lens cap is off because it's black, and if you activate it with this on, it's going to react with the black pigment and it will char your lens, so you don't want to do that. You also want to be careful to never try to like unscrew the cap. It just pulls straight up, otherwise you'll lose this little part off of your handpiece, which is real important. When not in use, keep your cap on because it protects it from scratching and also any dust accumulation. And then this little part here at the end is the only part that can go through sterilization. It unscrews. This can go through sterilization because it's also the only part that actually touches the patient. Everything else, and then periodically just make sure that that's tight when it's not in use so that you don't lose that part, okay? But the spot size lines up with that. And then let's look over here on the screen. So when you're working with this setting with the R30A, you're going to notice the screen looks a little different. Instead of having your normal pulse durations, you're going to have 15 microseconds and 25 microseconds are the only choices that you can do. You're still going to have your hertz to be able to adjust, and you're going to have your joules per centimeter squared, which will give you your wattage change or your power change. The other thing is you're going to have a new item instead of like the other handpieces, you have a spot size. So these little circles there, that is representing spot size change. And as I change the spot size, it's going to change the power setting on there. So if you notice, when I go up to the different spot size, it changes the energy. So it's really important that you have your spot size appropriate for the procedure that you're going to be doing. And then this is your joules counter. And it's going to, as the joules are being released as you're using the laser, that's going to calculate up, and you can enter that in your notes. And the R30A is in there to just give you the signal of which handpiece. If you're not sure, the R30A is listed on the handpiece itself, so you'll always be able to see what handpiece it is that you're looking for, okay? And there'll be a serial number with it as well. Now this also is connected to a fiber, and so that fiber goes down and it connects into the ND-YAG ports. These are all of the ports where the laser energy comes out of for the ND-YAG. The one with a red circle around it is your active port for your R30A and the 300 fiber. This middle part is for the 200 micron fiber and the Genova handpiece. And then this is your parking spot. So whichever handpiece that you're using, either the R30A or the 300, whichever one you're using needs to be in this active port, and the one that you're not, you would place in the parking position, okay? Now to change these, you want to push up and to the left to release it, and then to seat it, you go push up and turn to the right to lock it in place. It's that simple. Okay, now we're going to talk about the 300 fiber. And so the 300 fiber works with the R21 handpiece. If you ever question, it's the R21 is written on the handpiece itself. And you'll also notice there's this little connection that should be set on the side of your laser. If you don't have one, you can get these little attachments on Amazon, and they're great because it just keeps that fiber out of the way, and because it is delicate, we don't want to have a chance of it breaking. And because we're going to use the 300 fiber, first thing we have to do is go down here and make sure that we switch and put the 300 micron fiber into the active port. So this is the active port, so we're going to take that and move the 300 micron fiber over. And don't worry if sometimes it doesn't kind of go just right the first time. Just move it around a little bit because it is a key type mechanism. There we go. Okay. And now the 300 micron fiber, the thin fiber, is in the active port. So we should be good to go. All right. Let's come up here and look at the settings. So on the settings, when you're using the 300 micron fiber, you're going to notice you're back to having the pulse durations that you're more used to. You're going to see your hertz that you can adjust. This time you can actually adjust the watts. And so you don't have the joules per centimeter or anything. Instead, you have a second counter, so you can actually activate that by turning it black. And it will actually, as long as your foot pedal is down, it'll count down and shut off after it reaches the amount of time that you want to use it. That's great for biostimulation and for some of the other procedures like decontamination of the site for periimplantitis. So also you have a joules counter here that as you're using it, it's going to accumulate those joules, and then you'll be able to write that down in your notes for the procedure. The other thing to help you remember is if you look at this little image that's there, this 300 fiber, this little image, that looks just like this up here, which helps you to visualize and know that this is your 300 micron fiber because your handpiece isn't going to say 300. So that'll help you. They do make a piece that actually can go here that's called an ND-YAG tray cover, and it will snap into place here, and it just lifts up and allows you to slide the handpiece out. I don't have that here with me right now, so to protect the handpiece, I just have some clear rubber bands, but it's definitely worth the added price to have that little cover, because if this drops and breaks this little rubber tip off, then the handpiece becomes inoperable. That's the only thing that would damage this handpiece and make it not work. Now the fiber is very, very thin, and it's extremely fragile, so you want to pay attention to it, and that's why we have this little attachment here so that we can kind of keep it protected. When you're using it on this handpiece, this end part here pushes in and out. That is the part that actually is the locking mechanism. So if you're holding it like this and you pull the with your thumb, it's going to allow that fiber to move in and out of the handpiece. Okay, so when you release it, it locks in place, and there's no more movement that's allowed. Okay, so that's how that works. And I'm going to show you in a separate moment here how to actually strip the fiber and cleave it, because this is what the fiber looks like when it's not in the handpiece. It's basically a glass fiber inside a rubberized tube. And you want to have about that much of the fiber, I don't know if you can see that very well, you want to have about that much of the fiber exposed because there's a portion of the handpiece where it's going to narrow, and as it does, you need to make sure that that plaiting is off so that it will be able to reach out the end of the handpiece, okay? If you're ever trying to feed it and it just isn't going through, just pull out your fiber, and I'm going to show you how to strip the fiber and how to cleave it and how to set it up for actual procedures. But it's that easy. Okay, these are the tools that you're going to have for the 300 fiber for the ND YAG. This is your stripper, this is your cleaver, and this is your end for being in contact with the patient. This is actually autoclavable. You can just dispose of them if that's what you choose, and when you run out of the ones that come with your laser, you can get these similar one from your local provider. I believe Ivoclar is the manufacturer that makes them, but the nice thing is these are autoclavable, so you can run them through your ultrasonic, go ahead and run them right through your autoclave and just keep using them until, if you ever break the fiber off inside where it gets charred in this spot, it'll get kind of like a blackish situation going on it, like the fiber broke in here and melted it. If that happens, then the tip needs to be thrown away, but otherwise it can be used over and over again and just cleaned. And then of course we have the R21 handpiece that goes with it. So I'm going to show you, we talked about there needs to be a certain amount of the rubber cover removed off of the 300 fiber. So this is the stripper. You feed the fiber into the end of the stripper, and it rides down inside there. And you want to, if you look at this little mechanism down here, if you go to at least the bottom of this white, as far as the fiber fitting in there, that's the minimum that you would need stripped. This is also a good spot to go to. The most you would ever want to strip at one time would be to the end of this brown area here, okay? So just remember that and plan accordingly, okay? The other thing that I want you to pay attention to on this stripper is the track runs on the side that we want where all the numbers are at, okay? If we look at the other side of this, smooth goes with smooth, because if you load this little brown piece wrong, it will actually break your fiber instead of stripping the fiber. So smooth side of the brown goes with the smooth side of the stripper, okay? And the open track goes where the numbers are, okay? And so we're just gonna strip a little bit of this rubber off. So you're gonna get it into position, squeeze down on the handle and pull straight out. And that's gonna remove some of that little rubber sheathing, okay? And so you'll see that little rubber sheathing is off, all right? And then now we can actually feed that through the end of the R21 handpiece. We're gonna push up on that end part so that we can feed it through, release that lock, and let it come out the other end. You wanna have about that much of the fiber out the other end so that we can load this tip on the end of it, okay? But I'm gonna show you this here in a second. What we wanna do first, before we go to put that tip on, is we wanna check our aiming beam and make sure that we don't have any loss of energy. So I'm gonna activate the laser just to show me the aiming beam. And now when you're looking at that, do you see that big comet's tail? This big drag area that's there? That's a loss of energy. We don't wanna see comet tails when we get done cleaving this. We wanna see a nice round green circle with no comet tail when we're doing it. So that means we just need to re-cleave the end of the fiber, which you're gonna do this after you've actually used it on a patient. You're gonna cleave off any portion that has actually been exposed to the patient as well. So the way to do this is we're gonna hold it down. Actually, I'm gonna feed a little extra through the fiber. So that way I can hold it down steady where it won't move, okay? And then now that I've got it in a good position, I'm gonna take this, and there's one spot on this that actually has a cutting edge. Let's see if we can zoom in on that where you can see it. Okay. And that little edge is what's gonna create a scratch. So we don't wanna like push down so hard that we crush the fiber, because then that's gonna create a lot of scatter. We just wanna put enough pressure where we're in contact, just barely, in contact with that area. Make sure it isn't gonna move, and then just scratch across that fiber, okay? And then we're going to take it and snap away from the body, and then we have a nice beam. Now what we're going to do is put the tip on this end. So the best way to do this is you don't want to feed the fiber through this curve without straightening it, because otherwise you're going to crush the fiber as you're trying to make that curve. So instead, hold it with your middle finger and your thumb, and take your index finger and straighten that tip out as you feed it through the tip. And as you do that, it straightens it out and allows you to be able to remove that, and then just drag it back into contact. And then you're all set and you're ready to go with the patient. It's as easy as that. Okay, let's get comfortable with your screen. First off, your screen lifts and adjusts to help you get rid of any glare that you might have and line it up to your perfect position. You don't want to wipe the screen down while the screen is active. That'll actually mess with your calibration. You also do not want to use any barrier tape on the screen. Instead, it's the perfect size to feed the clear patient headrest covers. Fit perfectly over here. Best is to lift it up like that, put the bag over, tuck it behind, and put down, and it'll lock into place. And that way that screen is protected. So this screen is your standby screen. If you tap on the Fotona, it'll go into a demo, kind of a cool marketing video, which shows all the high tech for your patients. If you ever want to turn it off, just hit it again, and it'll go. When you're ready, go ahead and push the on button. This is just something that's good for the staff to be doing while they're waiting for the doctor in the room. It's just a cool feature for the patients, and it doesn't, you don't have any downtime. You're not going to do this when the doctor's ready to go, because most often it's going to go into a self-test as it's going, because it's checking and communicating between the two computers that are inside. So this is your user screen. There's two different forms. This is the advanced, and they call this comfort. I don't find any comfort in this because you can't see what you need to adjust. So we usually like to have our doctors keep it in the advanced screen so that you can know what you need to adjust and do so accordingly. Up in this upper left corner is your two lasers that you're able to choose from, the erbium laser or the ND YAG, depending on the procedure that you're doing. You're going to be able to choose the handpiece that you're wanting to use. These are your pulse durations that are available to be chosen. Millijoules are here, which is your energy level, your hertz, and which together those will equal your watts. This number will self-adjust as you change these. This is your water, this is your air, and these little blue dots that are there represent how much water is in there. As the water starts to get empty, those will start to go clear, and eventually it'll start chirping at you to let you know that the water needs to be changed. And I'll show you how to do that here at the end. But if you just want to temporarily turn off the water, you just touch that dark number and it'll turn gray. That means it's temporarily turned off until you touch it again to black. Now it's working again. So you can do the same thing with air, to temporarily turn off the air or to turn it on. And these adjust up and down to give you the different levels that you want. Okay. To turn on the laser, again, we're going to hit this button here. It's almost always going to ask you, do you have the right handpiece attached? You're going to be able to pick up the laser that you're using based on the setting that you have. You're looking for the red, signaling that the laser is working, and you're looking for the aiming beam before you go into the patient, just as a precaution. When you're done, you turn that power button off, and that way the laser is turned off so that it's not accidentally going anywhere. In this more button that you use down here, there is different things that you might need to have. If you don't like the melody that's preset for you right now, you can go in here and you can change. Melody 0 is pretty much the most popular, but you can select the one that you like best. Spray is the amount of water spray that's coming out at a time. Generally, you want to kind of set this at 0 and let it be that your settings that you do on the screen are set from a baseline of nothing. HP fiber tip, this is the button that when you need to change handpieces, you will come and hit this button, and what it's going to do is force air. So I'm going to actually hit this button, and now what it's doing is it's putting air out of the handpiece the whole time while I'm in the process of changing the handpiece. And then when I'm completely done changing the handpieces, then I'm going to hit OK, and it's back done. You're going to use that's in your more section. You're going to use this button anytime you're changing the handpiece or changing the tip that is in the handpiece, because we want to push all of that water out of the mirror area. And then this is a counter. It'll tell you how many total shots that you've had or how many shots for that session. And then we're gonna hit OK. Calibration. If you ever are using the screen and you're touching here and it's acting something over here, that means your calibration is off. You click on that button and it'll take you through a series of point and click mechanisms. And so just don't go into that unless you need to if it's not working properly. History is where you can go and see if there were any errors on your machine. So if you're talking to service and they tell you to go into your history, that's where you're going to find it. Okay. And then your welcome screen, you can go in and you can name your welcome screen anything that you want, and put your doctor's name in there and then hit OK. You can do the initial window. We have it set as coming up with advanced all the time. And then your spray refill, I'm going to come back to here in a second. Info is another button that you can go to. In here, the demo that starts when you play, when you hit that Fotona button, that's the demo that it's playing. There's also a video in here that teaches you how to replace the window and replace the mirror. So in case you need it in a hurry, to just remember how to do it, this will walk you right through it for any new staff or those kind of things. Okay. So let's go back. And then for spray refill, so let's say that water level got low enough where you need to refill. You're going to come to this more button, hit spray refill, and now what it's going to do is it's going to decompress the unit. And then from there, you're going to come around to the back of the machine. You're going to lift up here, and this is a quick disconnect. You just push right here and pull straight out. Okay. Use something to stabilize you, but you can see the circles and the line on this. You want to turn it between, usually wait a few seconds so that decompresses, but you're going to turn it between one of those circles and lines, okay, and then start to pull straight up. Okay, there is an O-ring in here that needs to stay moistened. If it ever doesn't compress properly, re-moisten that with either some very light amount of Vaseline or lip balm is fine. You want to fill the water up and leave a little bit of an air gap, and then when you go to put this back in, you can line that line up anywhere between any of the dots and then turn towards one of the dots. And now we're good to go. The other area that, if you're having trouble with getting the air fully to compress with the water, is these O-rings might have gotten dry, and you might need to put a little bit of very light amount of Vaseline or lip balm on that, and then you just push that straight into the connection. There is an actual optic inside there that is reading the amount of water. And so if you ever put the water bottle back in and hit OK and it doesn't fill up those blue dots, then that optic is not lined up properly. And then we're just going to come back here and press OK. So all of those things are found in this More button. And so you're going to go in there a fair amount whenever you're needing to refill the water or when you're needing to change handpieces or tips. So this is your user screen. This is where all your presets can be found. You click on that button. It's going to give you the different topics of categories. If it has anything to do with teeth related, it's typically going to be in hard tissue. And there's 20 to 25 presets depending on your laser. When you choose the preset that you want to use, let's say we want to do a veneer removal, you click on that and it will have made all the adjustments based on that. And you can actually preset these the way you want. Let me show you how to actually save a preset that you might want. So we go in here and we're going to select the laser that we're using first. I want to use an ND YAG on this preset that I'm going to put in. And I want to use the 300 fiber, which is already set, which is great. And then I'm going to choose my pulse duration, which I want an SP, which stands for short pulse. And then I'm going to go up to 100 hertz, which should give me a total of 5 watts. Now, if I wanted to, you can see here there's a timer. It's grayed out, which means it's not in action. But let's say I wanted to time this procedure. I would click on that to turn that black. This particular procedure that I'm putting in, I don't want that. So we're going to leave that blanked off. Okay. And now to save these settings that I just put in here, we're going to go to this little floppy disk looking thing. And then we're going to go to the category of where I know I want it. Okay. And I want this, I'm changing the setting that I want to have for hemangiomas. So I would click on that. I can change the name if I want and hit OK. Okay. So first thing you do is create all your settings that you want. Then you click the save button, and then you find where in your categories you want to have it, and then hit OK. Let's do that one more time so to make sure you're comfortable. So now I'm going to change this. I want an erbium setting, and I'm going to use the H14 handpiece with this one. My pulse duration, I want it to be LP, which is great. It's already set with that. I want the millijoules to be 150, and I want the hertz to be 15, which is perfect. I want the water just to be 3, and I want the air to be 3. And so now that I've made all those changes, I'm going to hit the save button. Okay. Then I'm going to go into the category that I know I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to click the spot where I want to save it, change the name to whatever it is that I want to save, and then hit OK. And now if I go back into this category, if I go back into this and I go to that area where I just put that in, now if I click on hemangioma, it's the setting that I just saved a minute ago. Or if I go back in and I click on the frenectomy one I just saved, it has changed to the presets that I want. Okay, so saving your presets are easy. Anytime I have updates in the settings that we've had come out from the trainers, that's all uploaded on my Dropbox, and you can have one of your staff make those adjustments to there. So basically, last thing I want to wrap up is maintenance 101. So maintenance, I want you to remember, do not wipe the screen down while the screen is on. Do not use barrier tape because that will actually lift the touch screen over time, and that will lessen the longevity of your machine. And instead, I want you to use clear headrest covers that will slip over top of this and tuck behind there. I want you to make sure that you are checking your mirrors and daily or at least weekly. And every 6 months, you want to, down here on the front, there's this little air vents. It's good to vacuum those and take any debris that might be on there off. And then there's one other filter that you want to be able to access, and it's under here, under the erbium side. It's held only in place by a magnet, so you pull straight back. And it looks like this. Okay? Just vacuum that off, and then you're going to put it back into place. Okay? So when you go to put it back in, the magnet is what holds it in place, and then it grabs by this. So you're just going to take it in there. There you go. And it's in place. The only other thing that I suggest is about every 6 months to at least once a year, you're going to take the mirror out and the window out, and so you're going to take the mirror out and you're going to take the window out and soak this in vinegar. White vinegar will dissolve any of the water buildup that's in these and help to prevent any clogging of the water spray areas on the hand pieces. And then you definitely want to do a preventive maintenance once a year to every 18 months, so every 12 to 18 months. The preventive maintenance costs $13.50 plus travel. You email the company at service@fotona.org to arrange that. And the reason why you need to do that is inside your machine are filters. And those filters, this at one time was pure white like snow. And the metals and the debris and things that are even inside the distilled water, it's inside the machine, eventually clogs that up. And as this gets clogged, it's going to, leave heat. Same thing with this. They'll only last for so long. And so the preventive maintenance is to keep these and to keep your whole mechanism inside running at top shape so that you can have your machine last as long as you can. And it's as easy as that. Okay, let's put all your things together in one easy, convenient spot. This is actually the box that the PSO4 comes in. These other little cubbies are filled with the foam, but they can be removed. When you do so, it allows you to fit all of the other parts into this same container. Usually these come in a bag now instead of a tub thing. But now everything fits in there. When this is on the machine, the dental coupler plus the tipless handpiece fits right in here, and you just tuck the little tubes that are attached to it along in here. And then this seals up, and that way you only have to have this one box with your machine. So everything's all nice and handy. This is your extra mirror, your extra window, your extra O-ring are all in that little box. There's your tip remover. These are your covers for the arm. This is your cover for the dental coupler. Your little disposable things for the ND YAG. Your window removal tool. Your mirror removal tool. Your cleaver for the ND YAG. Your other handpiece stopper plug. Your other handpiece that's not in use. And your window removal tool all go into these little spots. And your PSO4 would be here, or if you're in use with that, the coupler with the other dental handpiece attached would go in there. And that way it makes it nice and convenient for you to have everything instead of having a million boxes hauling around. Okay, the last important thing that I want to make you aware of with the operation of your laser is you have a kill switch down here. It's your emergency stop button. It legally has to be on there as a category 4 laser. If you push that button, it immediately shuts off all of the power to the laser, and then you need to push in and turn it to the right to release that button so that the laser then can restart. If you don't release that button and you try to restart, it's just going to turn on and immediately shut off, and you'll try to turn it on and it'll immediately shut back off. And you'll get a call to your salesperson saying, my laser isn't working. But it's not that your laser isn't working. It's that emergency stop button is probably still pushed in. And this happens. Sometimes your knee just bumps it, or in moving it from room to room, it just gets bumped. So if you ever go to turn your laser on and it won't turn on, first thing is come and check this button. And it's a safety feature so that in case of any emergency and you need to kill the laser energy, it's a very quick, you hit that button and as you saw, the whole laser will just shut off.